Good morning, Galaxians, and welcome to another live edition of the Galaxy CDs, Rocks, and Flips Reseller Talk podcast. My name is Ryan, and today we are joined by a special guest. Please give a warm Galaxian welcome to Alex, Beard King Picker. I don't know what happened there. We're all split here. Let's do this. There, that looks a little better.
Good morning. How's it going?
Good. Yourself?
I'm doing great.
Good. I appreciate you coming out and spending a little time here, interrupting your day. I know this is not the most convenient time, but...
No, I appreciate the invite, for sure. I'm excited because, if I do a podcast and I'm not allowed to talk about books, so I get to talk about books today. So.
Really? So let me pull you up on the main screen. Tell us a little bit about yourself first and where people can find you online, and then we'll get into that a little tidbit.
Oh, yeah. Beard King Picker. I've been reselling full-time going on 6, maybe 7 years. Started on Amazon, just being a book scanner, knowing nothing about books. Did that for about 2 years and then moved into Amazon online arbitrage. We're selling Nikes, Legos, all the major brands on Amazon, and kind of got sick of sitting at home doing all my sourcing online. I wanted to get back into the treasure hunting. So I switched over to eBay and been focusing mostly on books. I say right today, 95% of my store on eBay, Book Dust Media is my eBay store. It's all books. So we're 95% books on eBay now, and just specializing in books and really niching down in that category. So that's what I've been doing.
Awesome.
Yep.
So tell me a little bit about the not being allowed to talk about books on your own podcast.
No, I can talk about books. It's a joke. I do the Reseller Locker Room podcast. We drop an episode every Thursday at 9 a.m. And Ben, my other co-host, he gets bored when I talk about books. So he kind of zones out and it's like, wait, he just has no interest in it at all. So I always make that joke that I'm not allowed to talk about books.
Right. It drags the conversation down.
He just doesn't understand it. He's not into books. So I like to give him a hard time about it. But
it's always amazing to me how people decide what they are and are not interested in, and the business aspects of it aside, whether you can make money selling books or not. People just don't care. They're just not. I don't know if it's the volume of it that is required to make it make sense or what it is, but a lot of people just don't mess.
I mean, since it is more of a volume game, because we're not, at least as booksellers, I'm not paying attention to ROI because I know books can sit for 3 years, right? For that right collector to come around and looking for that antique book or whatever it might be. So it is more of a volume game. So I think that turns a lot of people off on it.
Right.
But in my opinion, books have the best ROI because you can get a book for a quarter at a thrift store. Or if you go to the Goodwill bins, I'm getting books by the pound. Most yard sales you go to, they just want the books gone. If they pull them out of their house, they don't want to bring them back in. So it gives us a great opportunity as booksellers to buy in bulk. And people just don't really know the value in books either. Other resellers will walk right past them. So you can be late going to a yard sale and there's still going to be books there because most people don't, pay attention to them at all. But there is some truth, though, too. I mean, we could say 80% of all books aren't really worth anything, though, either.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of. I've been pretty fortunate this recent big buy that I've done. I'm really hitting a lot of stuff that's pretty solid. But yeah, you're right. There's a lot of times where there's a lot of stuff that's people got up for $3 free shipping, and you're like, I can't even make that make sense.
Yeah, and I when I talk to other resellers, they say, "Well, I look on eBay, everything's $3 free shipping. How do you make money doing books?" I'm like, just not looking at the correct books. I mean, we can't be doing the mass market novels and make a living doing it.
Right. So let me hop here into the chat and say a few good mornings. Got junk in our trunk. Welcome. Congratulations on being first. And Playroom, welcome. Good to see you. Mary McQuain, thanks for stopping by. Lord Jake Ryan, always good to see you. Mel flips it here despite no notifications again. It's a good thing I set my alarm. There you go. You're just going to have to do that, I guess. I don't know why the notifications does not work, but that's just strange. Mike Metco meetups. Good morning.
Good morning.
Lots of good mornings going back and forth here. Ben self-destructs. Chuck Witt, good morning. You both opened my eyes as far as selling books, says Mike Metco. Got junk in our trunk. Books are a great category. I'm a retired estate liquidator and
Awesome.
sell all things vintage, but the last year my best online sales have been in this category. Yeah, absolutely. Talk to me a little bit about how you made that kind of transition from kind of a generalist, anything you could get your hands on, into 90+% books. Because I think your story is probably pretty similar to mine.
The transition, I mean, I look at books, I can store them pretty easily, right? You can organize and store them relatively easy. Why I niche down into books is just the simplicity of I only need 3 boxes, maybe some poly mailers, right?
Right.
So I like all that aspect of it, and I mean, I in my space here, I could fit thousands of books, so
Yeah.
I don't know if that
Yeah.
answers the question. I'm sorry. Like I said, I'm still half asleep here.
So was it the ROI, the potential
Well,
profit, or was it a combination of that and the ease of access of inventory, or some combination of all those things?
it's a combination of all that, but books are everywhere. Like we were talking about earlier, I mean, people just want to get rid of books, so they're always there. Most resellers are sleeping on books, so the opportunity is always there to get them. People want to give books away for free.
Right.
I mean, so it's easy to do the free book pickup model too. You know,
Right. Do you
but
do a lot of that?
I
Do
use
you advertise that you do like free
I
book
used
pickup?
I used to. I'm not currently doing the free book up pickup thing because you're just going to go through a lot of junk. I'm doing more
Right.
private picks now, working through with an estate company that's doing
Right.
clean out. So I get to go in there before the estate sale, or and try to make a deal on a whole collection. So that's kind of where my business has been moving in the last couple of weeks here, more into the mini bulk, you know, territory here. So
Right. And that's been my experience as well. The estate sellers love that.
yeah,
If you'll
yeah.
go in, because as you said, they don't want to mess with them.
Hmm.
They don't know the value of them. They don't want to take the time to work with any individual books. So someone who can come in and will haul it all away and give them a good price.
Yeah,
You're offering them a service as much as you are getting an opportunity to buy a bunch of really great books.
yeah.
What's the best buy you've had in terms of like a big collection for a really great price? What's one that really stuck out for you?
Well, I got 39 boxes of books, so it's around 1,100 for $100
That's a good
of,
deal.
of
Yeah.
book. I just did another one. I just finished. Well, not even finished because my truck is still full of 40 boxes of books, but I did pay 1,300 for the last one that I just finished up the other day. So I got some of those books here, like kind of what I was. Let me show you a few, very really nice
Oh, nice.
leather bound sets in this. We got some folio press. These are all sealed.
Oh, that's
Folio. Okay,
outstanding. Yeah.
very beautiful, collection of books, still sealed. So I did pay up for that $1,300, but I think we'll be fine. It's probably worth $5,000 the whole collection.
Right. Oh,
So
yeah. I would say easily.
yeah, I think this is probably my best pickup so far as a collection. But if we're talking like cherry picking single books, if we want to talk about some books like that, I think the highest book I'm at is 750 for first edition signed Jurassic Park,
Nice.
and that was found at the Goodwill bin. So I'm paying like 50 cents for that book.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So
So how do you determine that you go into an estate and there's whatever 800, 1,000, 1,500 books? What's kind of your rule of thumb? What are you looking for? How do you decide that, obviously with a bunch of new and sealed, it gets a lot easier, but generally that's not the case in an estate. People have read the books and gone through them. How do you decide what you're going to offer?
if I can have the time to go through it and comp some of the books, if I see that there's $1,000 right there, then I know and there's still say I'm going to offer 1,000. I see $1,000 worth of profit there, and only 5 of the book sets maybe, and there's 100 other books. Then I know I'm okay to offer at the high end at least 500 because I'm seeing my money there. Obviously, we don't have time to comp every single book,
Right.
so we need to make that educated, decision. So like another one I did, a 127 yard sales. I bought. I don't even know how many boxes of books it was, but it was all the walkthrough gaming books. And I scanned one book for Amazon that was selling for $475. So I'm like, well, this is one book. I
Right.
can go up and offer $500 and know I'm going to be fine because I'm going to get all these other. Ended up getting it for $250.
Right.
And
So
just
where all do you sell?
eBay. I'm still slightly on Amazon, but it's kind of I'm having trouble balancing eBay and Amazon. You see there, I focus on one and it starts doing well, and the other one kind of tanks. So I'm still on eBay, mostly all eBay, and then a little bit on Amazon. But I probably only have a couple hundred books on Amazon right now.
So what's your experience on Amazon? Because I don't know if you've followed my show much at all, but I don't sell on Amazon. I sold there years ago in the music category when I had a little record store.
Mm-hmm.
But since I started doing this full time in 2019, I just chose not to go back to Amazon. But I'm curious what your experience has been.
So like 6, 7 years ago, I started. This is kind of why I got into books because it's the best category to start on to learn Amazon, and you're used to not be gated in anything. I think
Right.
that slowly changed.
Yeah.
But 6 years ago, anyone could sell books. You did the barcode scanner and just go and scan all the books. So I did that for 2 years. I think we were doing like 55,000 just in book sales for the first 2 years. Which, if you know anything about Amazon, their fees, it's not much profit after
Right.
their crazy fees. So I got into the OA, started selling Nikes, Legos, and all that stuff. We were doing cat food. This is kind of a funny story. We used to sell a lot of cat food. So we were doing 10,000 in sales in just cat food. So I was selling books and cat food in one store. So
That's an interesting combination.
yeah, but my experience with Amazon is anyone can return anything and you lose out.
Right.
Because when I got into apparel, that was a terrible decision. People would return brand new Nikes, or not brand new Nikes. They'd buy brand new Nikes and return some dirty Adidas to me and still somehow win the case and get to keep
Right.
the Nikes, and I lose out on the money. So
Yeah.
that's kind of why I got out of that too.
I see that a lot from fashion sellers kind of across platforms. I don't think that's unique to Amazon. It's unique to fashion, maybe.
Yeah, you
That
kind
it's
of turn into a clothes renter. People are
right.
buying it and wear it, and then they return it,
Yep.
for an event or whatever they might have going on. So
Yep. Mary says it's crazy how many hauls Alex has been getting. Yeah, well, like I talked about a couple of weeks ago. Once you've established those relationships, those estate sellers love that. I've got several that are kind of doing the same thing. They'll reach out to me in advance of the sale and be like, "Hey, if you can come get all this out of our way so we can display the stuff we really want to sell,
yeah,
that would be awesome." And you end up getting them for 40, 50 cents a piece,
and
and you've got thousands.
that's recent in your business too, right? Because I know I did a haul a couple weeks ago, and you were commenting on that, and then I think 3 days you got an
Yeah.
opportunity to do like 5,000 books or something.
Right. And that's been, I've had a lot of instances over the last few years where at the end of a sale, a seller
Mhm.
will reach out and say, "We've got whatever left.
Yeah.
Come get them, come make us an offer, come just get them out of our way and you can have them," kind of thing.
Yep.
But over the last 6 or 8 months, that's really turned into, come in advance and get it. I was on a Facebook group the other day talking about how some resellers are really hesitant to kind of let estate sellers know that that's what they're doing. And
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I'm handing out cards every time I go. I'm sure you've already got one of these, but again, my name's Ryan. If you want to make a deal on all these books, and eventually that starts to turn into stuff.
Yeah, and this is pretty recent development in my business. It's actually Mike Metco's in the group here. He was here in Nashville with me, and we went
Right.
to a couple of estate sales, and this is where I made these connections when I was with Mike. And I didn't even have a card at the time. I was just said, hey, gave him my information, and luckily someone remembered it, and they gave me a
Right.
call the following like 2 weeks. And now I've been working with this estate cleanout company. They're
Yeah.
going into estates that people that don't really care to do estate sales and want to get it just out of their house, and then they're inviting me in there to maybe make a deal on all the books. So
Right. Right. Yeah,
but now
that networking piece, it's so important to build those relationships and get those opportunities that other people just miss. Are there particular types of books that you look for? Do you have like a favorite category in terms of selling?
religious books would be
Yeah.
my top category. I sell multiple Bibles every week, so
Yep.
That would be it. Would be old Bibles from 1800s, Bibles in other languages. I always look out for. So I'd
Right.
say religious books, and then the second category, anything history. You know, war
Yeah.
books, military books. I've had a lot of luck with military yearbooks, like cruise books.
Right. I think I just commented on one of your posts on Instagram about that because I am always looking for those. Those always, they're not always super fast sellers, but they always bring good money.
Oh yeah, no, we sold a few for like $250 recently. So, and
Right.
it's
Because
funny
they're,
because I was doing before this bulk thing. I was just going to the Goodwill bins, and all these other people, they're only scanning barcodes. So
right.
no one's paying attention to non-barcode books at the bins, and they
Yeah.
just pass on all these books. So
Right. I've talked about that too. There's when I was actually actively going to estate sales, which hasn't happened in a while, there was another guy that I would run into at virtually every sale, and he was a
mhm,
scanner.
yeah,
And I'd even run into him at like Friends of the Library sales, and he's on one shelf and I'm on the other, and he's scanning stuff and skipping the other stuff, and I'm looking at all the old stuff and skipping the scan, and we're just talking about our businesses back and forth, and then flip sides because we're not looking for the same stuff. So it's a
yeah.
really great, you're not competing even with everybody in the book category if you're selling, because some people just don't want to mess with old books.
Yeah, most people don't want to, do old books at all. So it's good to make those relationships with those people because you can help each other out too. Because
Right,
when I was going to the Goodwill bins, people know what I'm looking for, and we help each other out. Say, hey, you want this? I found this book or
right.
whatnot. So even other booksellers can be another resource because not everyone wants to sell the same books or are selling on Amazon or eBay.
Right. If anybody in the chat has any questions, please be sure to drop them in there. Linda says genealogy, small town history sell well. I do really well with like local history, and I talk about like the local church and school cookbooks. They're not
Yes,
huge money. They're
I love
12,
them.
$15, but you can usually get them for a nickel, 10, 25 cents a piece.
Hmm.
And they almost always end up selling. So I really love
Yeah,
that category.
I always
Jeff, good morning.
look for the spiral bound ones.
Right.
The little church ones. So you
Yeah.
kinda hit that small town history and the cookbook too.
Right. And like I've said previously, you've got, a grandmother or an aunt that has passed that had a recipe in that book that the family no longer has, and they find it and they're willing to pay,
Mhm.
12, 15, $18 to get that, to have that little piece of kind of family history. And it just, a lot of people don't look that far, I guess, in advance. They just see this stack of like a comb bound cookbooks and they're like, oh, that stuff's worthless.
Yeah, and people would think the same thing about a high school yearbook,
Right.
but if their dad's in that book, they're gonna want it. These are long tail things, but you can get
Yeah.
good money out of high school yearbooks or anything like that.
How big is your current inventory? How many active listings on eBay?
1,300 right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm just deleted. Well, I'm going to delete after this week. I'm doing 50% sell on all my hard goods because I need the shelf for more books. So
Right.
I'm gonna finally delete everything that's not a book out of my store, except media, CDs, and some records that I do too. But
Yeah. Do you have a target number in mind that you're trying to get to, or do you have like a price point below which you just won't mess with them?
I did for a while. I put it up to 30, but then I'm passing on so many books if I want, you know, the bread and butter is like really $15, 20,
Right.
$15. If you list a book on eBay for $20, you're getting that low ball or at least a decent offer around $15.
Yeah.
So my price thing has dropped back down to around $20. I want to see sold comps at 20 and listings around 20.
Right.
I don't really think it's really worth your time listing books for $10 when they're going to offer you 5.
Right. Well, and see, I set like a minimum acceptable offer. Like if I've got a $9.99 book, I set like an $8 floor on the offer because
Okay.
I don't want to mess with those $3, $4 offers. Every once in a while, one will sneak through if I missed it, but
Don't
I sell stuff all the way down to like $4.99, $3.99 plus shipping, so a $10. But I'm really, we talked a little bit about, the volume game.
Yeah.
I I'm rapidly approaching 12,000 active listings. So for me, those, sub $15 books are still kind of bread and butter because I'm doing 6, 8, 10, 12 of those a day, 7 days a week on top of then the books that are 25, 35, $45. And all of a sudden you're talking about some pretty good money.
Yeah. I mean, all those little sales add up too. But if you're setting a floor and not accepting offers, do you think that's hurting you getting more attention on those listings, like the algorithm? Because I think anything action you have on eBay is going to help your store or push your products out more.
I I don't think so because when I look at my impressions, I'm getting like millions of impressions already. Some of that is, of course, a factor of the fact that I've got that many listings out there. But I send out offers. I'm constantly running sales. I've got so much other activity
Hmm.
that I don't, and I know there are offers coming in that are getting auto declined because you'll see
Yeah.
the offer that finally does get to you and it's like 2 offers left. So they started low and they worked themselves up, which is kind of the goal. I don't want to, again, with that number of listings, I don't want to be messing with a bunch of negotiations over a $10 book. I know I want to
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
$8 out of it. I'll stick to my gun, and then maybe later I'll run it on sale. But I kind of have an idea in mind of where I'm trying to get to.
Okay.
Primo Chemo says, "Aloha. Question: How rich will be as booksellers once List Easier, the premier AI listing tool, comes out?" I don't know anything about that tool, so is that
So
something you're familiar with?
yes, they just announced that List Easier program, which you take a picture of whatever item and it will pull up the listing, like make the title for you and everything, give you the information about that product. I've seen it work with clothing so far and some CDs that James was doing. I don't know how it's going to work with books, especially when you're dealing with, if you take a picture, let's say we take a picture of the Stephen King book, is it going to tell me based on that picture that it's a first edition?
Right.
Because there's so much research that goes into books that you could be missing. I don't know how the AI is going to work with that.
Right. Yeah, I would think that. I was just going to say that would be my big concern. It's going to potentially miss first printings
Yeah.
and unusual copies of things that may in fact have the same cover but not be the same book.
Yeah, I think it'll be fine with like newer books and barcoded books.
Right.
The AI should be able to pull that, but I'm curious to see. Hopefully it does work because it will literally change my business and I need it to work because I just brought in another 2,000 books. So
Right.
I need to get them listed because you asked about a goal. I do want to get to around, I think 4,000 books is what I can fit in my space right now without
Right.
having to get, extra storage and all that. So
Yeah. Talk a little bit about your process. So you've now got a couple thousand books ready to be worked in what some people would consider your death pile. How do you wade through those? What's your physical process for doing the research, deciding which ones to list, and then your listing process?
I do big buyouts because I like buying, and then I just forget to list them, and I just have a death pile. But I keep buying them because I can't pass up on more books. So,
Right.
um, my listing, I'm trying to list every day to $300 to $500 worth of new inventory every day is the goal. Most of the time, to be honest, it's probably around 300 every day. And the research, if it's under the $10, I'm just donating that book. I'm not wasting my time with that book.
Yeah.
So I do have a process. Well, now that I'm doing bulk, I'm going to try to do live shows probably on Whatnot to see if I can sell some of them and grow that platform. And if they don't sell over there, I live right next to McKay's used bookstore. I don't know if you're aware what that is. And
Mm-mm.
they buy media, toys, books. So they will give me money for the books too. So I've gone over there with like 3 boxes of what I consider duds and still made $65. They'll offer me cash for the books. So I do have
Yeah.
that outlet and it's like right down the street from me. So that is really cool that I have
Right.
that. So
Yeah. In our area, the only thing we've got that's kind of comparable to that would be half price books, but they don't give anything.
it's like half price books, but they give decent money.
Right. Yeah,
So
that would be super helpful to have an outlet like that. Good luck on Whatnot. My experience has been that those low value books I did not do very well with. I tried for about 7 months, trying them individually or sometimes
yeah.
in lots, and just didn't really get much traction on it. So
Yeah, I've done a couple shows too. I think it does good if you niche down to like doing an all Christian book show
Sure.
one day and you're advertising it for like a week to try to get people to save the show. And I kind of want to focus on because I like picking up the vintage sci-fi and fantasy books that might
Right.
only sell on eBay for $6 plus shipping. But I just, like all those things. I don't
Right.
want to see any of these books get thrown away, so I rather sell them for $2.
Right. And that sci-fi and fantasy was one category that I did do really well with on Whatnot. I
Yeah.
was doing a kind of a regular Friday night show. I had done a big bulk buy and I had hundreds of books in that category to go through. And those shows did pretty well. But my experience with kind of history and, other fiction and biographies and that just, I really got no traction at all. So
Yeah, I think
I haven't completely written it off, but
you got to put in the time and build the community over there, which can take time,
yeah.
So I'm kind of thinking maybe drop Amazon and kind of focus on Whatnot.
Right.
I'm not going to the Goodwill bins. All these collections I'm buying aren't barcoded collections, so
Right.
it's costing me $200 and something a month to even run the Amazon business with all the programs. And
Sure.
I've been in the red for 2 months because I haven't been to the Goodwill bins in 2 months. So I've only shipped off maybe 60 books in a month.
Yeah.
So,
Primo says the software he was talking about is being released with full non-barcoded support, picture front, back, and copyright page. So that would help eliminate the first edition issue.
Josh Galt I asked him about the books, and he said they tested 60,000 books through that program.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm hoping it does well. So, and it works. So I'm definitely going to give it a go and try to use the AI.
Right.
I know you talked about AI not really using AI in your business that much at all.
No, I haven't. I've dabbled with eBay's AI with very little success. In terms of like their descriptions and like their photo search and whatever is just not been very good. So that might be something that I would be interested in trying, something that would help speed that process. Because I'm in the same boat as you. At the present time, I've probably got 6,500 books in my garage that I need to get through. So anything that would help speed that process for me, rather than looking them up individually every time on eBay or Abe Books or whatever, would probably be helpful.
Yeah. Do you utilize WorthPoint at all for research?
Generally not. Every now and then I'll find something that's like super, super unusual and I'll go check there. But for the most part, I've not run into too many that I can't find somewhere else that'll give me at least a reference point.
Yeah.
Have you used WorthPoint quite a bit?
Yeah, I have a subscription to WorthPoint, so it has paid for itself. I mean, I listed a book and it sold within minutes for $65. And I'm like, I didn't research this as well. Maybe I'm missing something because anytime something sells very quick, I'm like, what did I do wrong?
Right.
On WorthPoint, well, it's a $200 to $400 book.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
shoot.
Yep. That always makes you nervous if something pops right away, like within hours.
They're slower sellers, and then if it sold within 5 minutes, I must have really messed up.
Yeah. Yep. Jeff asks, I'm always curious how eBay sellers balance creative pursuits with their selling. Any thoughts on that? I assume you're talking about things like YouTube and being active on Instagram and those sorts of things. So you obviously, you do a podcast, you're super active on Instagram. How do you balance your time?
My business suffers, to be completely honest. I think my 90-day total would double or triple if I didn't do any social media. But there's opportunities with doing social media too,
Right.
So like the book I showed earlier, the Stephen King, I've received that from Commonwealth Picker. If I wasn't involved in the community, that deal would have probably never happened, So does being active in social media does open up doors for your reselling business too?
Oh, absolutely. And there are so many of us on here, whether it be YouTube or Instagram or whatever. So
yeah, it can waste a lot of your time though too. So.
Yeah, I try not to go too far down the rabbit hole of like spending time on Instagram. I'll usually hop on a couple times a day and kind of scroll through the top dozen or so posts, and then I put the phone down because it can become a real time suck. And in terms of like managing my time for doing the show, recording the podcast, I budget that time kind of over and above the goals that I have for my business. So like you, I could make the argument that if I took those 4 hours a week that I spend doing this type of thing, listing more books, I would absolutely make more money. But there's something to be said for being involved in the community and just doing something different. Spending 40 or 50 hours a week listing books would probably not be good for my mental health.
Yeah, it's definitely the best part of the social media is just the mental health, the aspect of everything. Because being a reseller, we're just by ourselves all day,
Right.
so at least we can still be social.
Yep. And that's one of the reasons I do this live is to give people an opportunity to squeeze out an hour a day, once
Yeah,
a week, to come and commiserate, talk about what's going well, talk about what's not going so well, maybe learn something. It's super helpful, I think. Mel says, I have a bunch of 80s, 90s diet books in a bulk buy I just did in January, but I'm wondering if I should remove, sell live. How do you decide?
if they're really not worth any money, you could lot them together, and they would be. You can take a whole bunch of books that might only sell for a couple dollars, but make profit by lotting multiple books together.
Yep.
And I've actually had done well. If you find like old 80s bodybuilding diet books, they really do well. So
Yeah. I do quite a few lots. I had several today that went out. Lots of 2 old science fiction books that individually were worth a couple of bucks a piece, and I lotted them up and offered them for $5.99 plus shipping, which put them in the range of what somebody would be paying for them if they bought them individually. And you end up selling, bundle by genre, bundle by author. There's so many different ways you can do it, assuming that you've got the space and the time. Because unfortunately, this stuff is never organized. When you get it, this box has one Isaac Asimov book in it, and it might be a week before you come across another one. So there are some space constraints, but
yeah. How do you store all your books, or you're not a full book seller though? I mean, everything seller when you're talking about you have 1,100 items listed,
no, it's
11,000. I mean,
probably 85% of my listings are books, and
okay.
most of the rest of it is CDs. I've got a handful of other things that are still here from when I was doing more general stuff, but I haven't really bought anything but books over the last probably 3 years. So I actually lease warehouse space close by here. I've got, I don't know, probably 2,500 square feet now of space where I store all of the stuff that is listed. And then all the stuff that I'm working is still here at home, so I can kind of work through them and then take them to the warehouse in the morning when I go to pick orders.
Yeah. So I like being able to walk downstairs and my business be right here, all in house. So
Yes.
I'm trying to utilize the space I do have until I have to get a warehouse. But
Yeah, I did the same, and I ended up I had books in literally every room of the house.
my
I was
wife
finally
is
like,
not my wife's not very happy because my whole living room is full of 40 boxes of books. And her
right,
mom's coming to visit in like 2 weeks. She's like, "You got 2 weeks to give me my living room back." I'm like,
yep,
and then I'm looking down here. I'm like, I don't even know where I'm going to put these things because I haven't
right,
gone through the last 40 boxes I just bought.
yeah, yeah. No, both my spare bedrooms were full. My dining room, because I normally don't eat there. It's me and a dog, so I don't spend a lot of time at the dining room table. That room was full. They were stacked in a hallway, and I was finally like, I gotta get my house back. So I did end up
Yeah.
leasing some space, but
It would be cool to get a space and then have like a storefront for a bookstore. I think that might be a future goal for me, like a little
right.
book shop in the front for, novels and stuff like that.
Yep. Yep. I get asked that a lot from my local community because I used to have, again, my little record and CD store here that people remember. And they're like, you should open a bookstore. And my thing is like you, I like being able to just walk down here into my basement and do my work and not be tied to like hours of a retail store that I've got on the door.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I started doing this was to get my time back, to be able to knock off at noon if I wanted to and go do something else, or just kind of arrange my day and what best fit what I was trying to do. And if you've got a retail store and it says on the door you're open 10 to 5, somebody needs to be there 10 to 5. So it's either you or you're paying somebody. And I
Yeah.
just wasn't interested in doing either of those things.
You would definitely need an employee or something. I mean, it's funny because I liked reselling because I didn't want to deal with employees. And that's
Right.
kind of another reason I got out of Amazon, because I did have 2 employees when I was doing the Amazon business. And moving back into eBay, I didn't want the employees and just work for myself. But now I'm getting so many books. Now I need employees to keep growing,
Right.
because I can only do so much in a day. I can't list all the books and then ship this and, I just want to go out and be the buyer and have a
Sure.
shipper and a lister.
Yeah. See, so that again, I talk about all the time on this show how like, there are so many different business models that people can do to be successful as resellers. Some people want to scale, they want to have like a massive warehouse and tons of employees. And other people, like in my case, I don't want employees. I want to do all this myself. I don't want to be bothered with all that. And I'll eat that elephant one bite at a time. I've got all those books and I'll do 30, 40, 50 listings a day. And then tomorrow I'll do the same and I'll just work through it at the pace that I can.
50 books a day. I need to hire you to list my books better than I can do. Maybe 20.
What do we got here? Mary McQuain says, "You're not kidding. Stop at half price books just before you donate them." Yeah, absolutely. They've gotten pretty bad. Ryan M. Dreyer had good luck with duds on Whatnot in the early days, but I feel like those days are gone. Yeah, that seems like it's gotten super competitive over there. There's just so many sellers selling kind of inexpensive books. It's gotten very, very difficult. Mike Metko says community is so important to avoid burnout, but making reselling more enjoyable. Mel says, just expect those diet books to be long tail, like 3 years. I know about other books, but I can't figure out those. Again, I would, like Alex said, I would probably lot them up and then just not worry about it and price it at a price that I thought would move. So I wasn't sitting on them for 3 years, but you never know.
Yeah, for sure. Let's sell some books. Shout out to Max and the Paper Gold group.
Yep. Max has been on the show a couple times.
Oh, awesome.
Over the months. Miss Lachey, generally slow to try new things, but will research both Better Lister and List Easier to see if either will help me as a small non-volume seller. Is there pricing on that software yet? Do you know?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to price for you. I wouldn't trust the prices though.
No, I meant is there a subscription price?
Oh, for the AI
once it comes out. Yeah.
One of them is $50 a month for you get 100 listings for that $50. The other one is $69, maybe $70, but you get 1,000 listings per month.
Right. See, that's the route I would have to go because I'm doing. Before I did this last big buy, I was doing 100 to 150 listings a week. Now I'm doing 200 listings a week, give or take. So it's 50 would not be helpful for me.
Better Lister is the one that is giving you 100 listings, and then List Easier is 1,000 listings. So you're paying 3 to 7 cents, I think, for the List Easy or Easier.
Yeah,
but none of them have been completely released yet, so I haven't got to test them. So they're kind of in beta testing right now.
Max says, "Whatnot is not difficult. Sell good books." There you go. I've tried.
Max, I just want to sell my duds. Max will bring a $600 book and start it at $1. I don't have that confidence yet.
Right, and I've talked about it before. I see a lot of that. I was watching a YouTube video the other day of someone who sold a book for $60 or $70 that they had picked up on Whatnot for a couple of bucks, and I'm not willing. I can't mentally get past that hurdle of potentially leaving that much money on the table.
Yeah, I mean, it's a vault. You're getting that money. I mean, you can go buy books in that morning, and then you can run them the same day on Whatnot too. So your money will add up quicker. That you're not waiting to get your money back and make some profit. You can turn items a lot quicker with Whatnot. But you gotta put in the time to build up that following too.
Yeah. There is a point though where, like you say, I wasn't attracting the audience, and maybe that's because of how I started with it, that was interested in bidding up, even decent books. And my experience taking some good books over there was I was getting about half what they were comping for on eBay. And that's a pretty big bite. Yes, you get some quicker cash flow, but depending on your business model, I don't mind the long tail. I'm not in a big hurry necessarily to flip through these. So I've just kind of chosen a different route, but everybody has a little bit different idea of how they want to do it.
Yeah. I think it's a good idea to have a kind of a hyper, be not just on eBay. Like, you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. Let's say something happened to your eBay account, and then what do you do? But if you already built that whatnot following, you have that backup and that community to still be able to sell books and keep your
Right.
business going. You know.
Yeah. And I to be fair, if I sell on several others and I've established somewhat of a presence on whatnot, if eBay suspended me for some reason, that would change the equation on the math, certainly. You'd be willing to take less to move some inventory. But I'm just in a position where I can afford to sit on a book to try to get a little bit more out of it. And I'm selling, 15, 17 books a day. And that's a number that I can live with without having to sacrifice a little bit of extra margin. And again, like we talked about earlier, there's many different ways to skin a cat. That's why all these different platforms have different programs that you can use, whether it's live selling, posh shows, depending on your category. There's tons of different ways that you can do it. Have you thought about selling on any other sites? There's all kinds of like small, like Pango books and
not Pango books, but Etsy has been a lot of booksellers are talking about Etsy now. And I know you sell on Etsy, so
Yep.
I kind of want to experience with that. I rather drop Amazon and maybe do Etsy just for the type of books I'm getting now. Makes more sense to be over on Etsy.
Right.
So
Yeah,
I'm definitely not sending over Eastern Press books and selling them on Amazon or trusting Amazon to store the books for me.
Right. Now, do you do fulfilled by merchant or just FBA on Amazon, or do you do both?
I was doing both. I just recently took all my FBM down and just listing it on eBay. It moves better on eBay for me when it comes to FBM, fulfilled by merchant.
Right.
But
Why do you think that is? Just out of curiosity.
The type of books you're listing, if they're like a collectible book, those collectors of those books, they want to see the condition of the book. And that's the difference between Amazon or eBay and Amazon. You can show the condition of that book on eBay, where it's Amazon, there's one stock photo of the book. And those book collectors, I wouldn't go buy a collectible book or a signed or a first edition on Amazon. And first editions don't mean anything on Amazon either. It doesn't make the price of the book
sure,
worth anymore unless you list it under collectibles, but I don't know.
Interesting. So when you do a listing on eBay, walk me through your process. How many photos do you take? What do you take photos of when you list a book, and kind of go through how you do that?
Front cover, spine, back cover, the cover page, the edition, what edition it is, the year it was put out, all that. I think more pictures. If the book is in rougher condition, then I'll utilize all the pictures I can because I want to show all that. The better the book is, the less pictures I take. So I was trying to grab a book here, to show, front cover, back, and then inside.
Right.
Definitely want, this is important when it's signed by Stephen King. That'd be an important picture, I think.
Yeah.
What other stuff? Just the dates and all that stuff. And then a couple pictures. If there's highlighting in there, I want to show that or anything, which you come into when you sell a lot of textbooks. Because I don't send any textbooks to Amazon at all. This is not, worth it.
This big collection that I just bought was a former school teacher. And I'm coming across a lot of books where she has made notations in the margins and underlined passages and stuff, which doesn't kill the book, but you definitely want to obviously disclose those things and talk about kind of what the actual condition of it is, and then price it accordingly. But do you run into a lot of that?
The highlighting and all that? I do when it comes to textbooks, There's a lot of writing and highlighting. Some people might like it because there's already notes and all the important stuff's highlighted for you. So it might help sell.
Yeah. True. Max says, would you be happy with a $1,500 for 2 hours of a whatnot show, even if some books undersold? Would the $1,500 make you smile? Yes. Maybe, but not if they were worth $5,000. That's the dilemma that I'm in. I don't want to sell a $60 book for $2 that somebody else will list on eBay and make $60 on. I could have just done that myself. It's already 80% of my business. I've got the room to store it. So, yeah, I'd potentially be happy with the 1500, but not at the expense of a significant amount of margin that's left on the table.
I
And
do
again,
like
that I
when
don't
I
think
do
there's a
live.
wrong answer,
Yeah.
but
I do like buying books at that price and selling them for $60, which I recently sold a book for 65. That was bought from Max on Whatnot. So thank you, Max.
there you go.
He's gotten so popular now; it's hard to get the best deals. But I mean, I'm watching the numbers and what he's selling. He gets really close to some eBay prices sometimes on the books he's selling now, which
Right,
just happened over time of building the community. So
right.
I think if you have the inventory to do it, I think it's worth the investment in the long run in your business. Even though I have difficulty getting into Whatnot. It's not my favorite or live selling. So, but
Um,
if you have the personality for it, I think you should definitely be utilizing it.
So what don't you like about it? Because you're, as I said, you've got YouTube, you're doing a podcast, you're super active on Instagram with Reels, which all of that it kind of ties into kind of the same thing, a presentation on camera and having a conversation with people. So what is it about Whatnot that makes you hesitant from that standpoint?
I honestly have difficult talking to a chat and not this back and forth that we're having right here.
Right.
I'm just looking at a chat and trying to keep talking the whole time. I just find issues with that.
Yeah. It
Which
does.
over time, I think I would get used to it and I
Yes.
get better at doing it. But the times I've done Whatnot, they've been kind of terrible shows.
Yeah.
But
It is definitely a learning curve. The first few I did, I
yeah,
was missing all kinds of stuff in the chat because I was so concerned about doing whatever the other processes were, showing the book, talking about the book, that I was just not able to really keep an eye on it. But as I got more comfortable with that, I was able to keep a better eye on the chat and engage with what conversations were taking place over there, which wasn't always a ton, but people might have questions, and it's like anything else. It's a skill that you kind of develop over time, and the
yeah.
practice of doing it makes a big difference. I go back and listen to our first podcasts or our first YouTube video, and they probably weren't very good either.
Well, Max's first Whatnot show was sideways, I believe, because I was there for the first one. I think the camera was sideways the whole time. It worked out great for him. You just get better. Every show you'll improve over there. So I just
Right,
need to put in the time. And I think now doing these bulk buys, I really need to start using it. And I've
right,
been I have stacks on the floor here that are going to be for Whatnot shows, but I'm trying to, do all the religious books in one show and then a cookbook show. I kind of want to approach it that way.
right.
And my goal
Yeah,
eventually would be to only be doing more sci-fi horror because I know all that stuff does really well and Whatnot, the vintage sci-fi and fantasy
yeah,
books. And I probably have a couple thousand of those books that I've been buying for live selling, and I just haven't started yet. I mean,
yeah.
there's
Yep.
only it's just another platform to try to balance. So, I gotta decide what I'm gonna drop to add that in the business.
Right, and that goes back to what someone asked earlier: is how do you balance all of that stuff out? Something's got to give. You can't do kind of everything and still have some kind of life.
Yeah,
Your wife's already squawking about the books in the living room. What happens if you're 12 hours a day, 2 hours on Whatnot and listing on eBay, and then you got to pack and ship and
mhm.
go to the bins and all the rest.
Yeah, that's the hardest part about this business is balancing everything. And like I was saying earlier, I can focus on eBay, my sales, my 90-day goes up, but my Amazon drops, or then I can focus heavily on Amazon and then my Amazon sales do well, but then my eBay slacks.
Right.
So when you're a one-man show, it's hard to do. With employees, then you can try to grow in, other
So
areas too. So
you mentioned that you're thinking about you've reached a point, at least with your inventory, that you might want to consider an employee. How walk me through how you would do that. What kind of things would you be looking for? What would you task them
cheap,
with? What would you
cheap,
trust
cheap
them with?
labor, cheap labor. So I do have an employee officially 2 weeks now. It's my daughter. She's 9 and she does my photography for me now. So I've been training her.
There you go.
She's over here looking at me. She works for $20 a week, so I can afford that.
Yeah, not
Um,
bad.
my wife in August is dropping down from her 9 to 5 job to only 3 days a week, so she will be working with me 2
There
days
you
a
go.
week, and she'll be listing and packing. So trying to use a family first, right? I don't
Right.
Everything's in my house, so I am very nervous having a family to bringing someone into the house.
Sure.
Now, if I had a warehouse, it would probably be different. I could, hire whoever,
Right.
and I'd feel more comfortable with that. But since it's all in my house, I'm very cautious of who I let, into my house.
Right. So your wife joining part time, is that something that she was interested in doing? Is she interested in the reselling, or is it just a
No, no.
circumstance?
She has reselled with me full time before. When we did Amazon OA for 2 years, she worked with me full time. So
Okay.
she's done reselling before. And what she likes to say, she's just waiting for, because I've kind of switched from Amazon to eBay in the last 2 years now. She's waiting, what she says, the boat's closer to the dock to make that full jump, the full time reselling again, which when you have family, the biggest thing we need to think about is insurance,
Sure.
right?
Yep.
So we're slowly trying to move into there, and she would like to probably would do this full time. She thinks that if you sell books, you get to sit around and read books all day because she reads about, I don't know, 60 books a year or more than that, and she just wants to read. I'm like, you can't sit around and read. I don't get
Right.
to read anymore since I sell books.
No, no. I made that comment not too long ago. I've cut
I
way
read.
back on my reading. I keep every now and then I'll pull a
uh,
book out of a lot. I'm like, oh, I think I would want to read that, and they all end up stacked by my recliner, never
I
getting
got
read.
Yeah, I got 2 full bookshelves of books that I want to read, but
Right.
haven't got to. So
Yep.
if you're a
Dave.
reader, don't sell books because you'll have no time to actually read the books. So just sell the
Yeah.
book.
Well, and that is a thing too. I talked about that when I had my CD store. I've been a lifelong huge music fan, and sometimes when you turn like a passion into a business,
Mhm.
it can like burn you out a little bit on it because it changes your mindset, how you look at it. Suddenly, it's not something that's solely for enjoyment. It is there's a profit motive, and it kind of you can get it a little twisted. I know when I finally closed my store, I went for quite a while. I didn't go to any shows. I wasn't listening to nearly as much music. I had just gotten burned out after 12 years of doing it. So there's definitely something to be said for that.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, you look at people that play in bands, they stop listening to music too because
Yeah.
that's what they do for a living.
Yep.
I mean, listen to any new bands that come out or anything like that. So
Yep. Dave says, is there a book you won't sell, even if it is allowed on the platform?
no.
No, I'm same.
Yeah, I'd sell
I'm
any
very
book.
mercenary about it. If I can put it up there, I will put it up there. I try not to prejudge what a customer will buy.
Mhm.
Like, do you do like any book repairs or do anything like that to like fix a book that is in?
I'm not trying to buy projects to resell. If I had the free time, I'd love to be able to rebound books and do all that just as a hobby.
Right,
But I don't think we should be buying projects to fix up. I don't have time for that.
right.
It'd be a cool skill to learn, though. I'd love to learn that skill. You know,
So
but
if you get a big lot and you've got whatever, an old religious book from the mid 1800s, but it's in a pretty significant state of disrepair, but it still looks like it probably has some value, would you list it?
I have listed many Bibles that have the cover sitting outside of
Right,
not attached anymore. Especially when you're dealing with Bibles from the 1800s, collectors are still that book's still gonna sell,
right. Yeah,
regardless the condition of some of these older books. So I've sold multiple books where the cover is detached, and
right.
maybe they're buying it and they're gonna put the time into fixing it.
Right. And that, again, to go back to my initial point on that, I try not to prejudge what a customer might want to do. They might want it in that original state, even if it is in a state of disrepair. And alternatively, they may want to rebind it. They just want the
Yeah.
guts so that they can put a new binding on it. But if I do all that, I'm completely changing how buyers will view that book. So I'm with you. I get a book that's, as long as it's not completely falling apart or
Mhm.
missing significant numbers of pages, I'll go ahead and list it, but obviously disclose all of that.
Yeah.
Mary says, otherwise, how would you be part of the most offensive find of the week segment? There you go. I've listed like old, like 50s through 70s era kind of adult pulp books and stuff, and those do really, really well. So yeah, I have no qualms about selling that kind of stuff. Linda says, I've used archival glue to repair loose spines. There you go.
Never tried that.
Yeah, I'm with you. Again, with just the sheer volume of books I have to work through, taking the time to do a repair just from an economic standpoint probably doesn't make sense for me. I've got too many other books that I could list that are already in good sellable condition to worry about fixing.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose if it was a super expensive book, maybe it would be a different scenario, but
Yeah, maybe. I mean, if it's gonna up the value, if you put in the time to get it fixed and it's gonna add value like a couple $100, then it's probably worth your time. But
yeah.
I rather just keep moving books and not buying projects,
Right. Yep. So we're rapidly coming up on an hour here. That's where I usually like to keep these. So if you have anything else you would like to ask in the chat, speak now, or at least until next week, hold your peace. Quick thank you to everybody who came out and did have questions or comments today. I always appreciate you guys coming by and spending a little time here while we're waiting to see if anybody else has anything in the chat. Do you have any final thoughts for us?
I got nothing. No, just
Thanks. That's it, folks.
That's it. No, I appreciate you inviting me on. It's been awesome to be able to sit here and just actually do a whole show of books and talk about books. But if anyone's interested in following me, just Beard King Picker on all social media, and then also the Reseller Locker Room every Thursday morning. You can find me over there.
Awesome. I did put links to your Instagram and your YouTube in the show notes, the video description down below. So there are links there. If you can't remember Beard King Picker, to go look. Where else are you? YouTube, Instagram? Are you on X or any of the other?
I don't really post on X, but I'm on TikTok and Instagram, and then just Beard King Picker on YouTube and Reseller Locker Room on YouTube.
Who do you do that show with?
Ben, the Rocky Top Picker, and
Okay.
CJ Ben Fines is our other co-host.
There you go.
I was gonna also, just a quick mention, if anyone's interested, if you follow the Reseller Locker Room on Facebook, we are having a reseller meetup in East Tennessee in September coming up. I think 26th through the 28th. So you can always reach out to get more information about that if you're interested.
There you go. Midwest Picker says, sold a water damaged, mildew damaged book, all fully disclosed and photographed. Buyer returned it because it was worse than they thought. Never again. I had one this past week where a guy bought 3 books. I packed them in one. They were fairly small, so they all went in one bubble mailer. And he asked for a return on one of them, said it arrived damaged. But in the return request, he stated that he cut the package open with a utility knife and sliced through the dust jacket on the book.
Well, that shouldn't be a
I'm
return.
like,
That's the Amazon return. I get so many books back from Amazon that you could tell when Amazon opened up the books, they hit it with the razor and ruined the book. All the time that happens.
Yeah.
But
crazy to me.
That would be the one thing that I would stay away from is smell when it comes to books.
Yeah.
I mean, especially if there's mold in the book, I wouldn't probably even list that book.
Right. If it has that kind of slightly mildewy basement smell, I'm usually not opposed to putting it up. Again, disclosing that that's the case. I had a big lot of science fiction books at one point that were from a smoker's home. Again, priced accordingly and disclosed, and sold essentially all of those pretty quickly, despite that issue. So it's, again, everybody's going to be different in terms of how sensitive they are to those odors. But disclosure, if you're going to list them, obviously disclosure is key. And there's always going to be somebody that thinks it's worse than they thought from the pictures.
Yeah. I've had a return on a cookbook. It was a barbecue book, and they said it smelled like smoke. It's like, well, obviously they sat it down by their barbecue while they were making food, and it had that smoky smell to it.
Right.
I have got a return for smells a few times, but
that is so funny.
It smells good like barbecue.
Right. That's kind of the point, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh man, you just never know with people. Anyway, let's call it a wrap here. Thank you again to everybody who came out. Special thanks to Beard King Picker for joining us today. If you're ever looking for a guest on your show, feel free to reach out. Be happy to do that as well. Until next time, my friends, it's time to sell. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.